Well, here we are again. Greetings, everybody. It's good to see that we've got, wow, 110 people already set to go. You guys got the gun jumped on me. So, um, good on you. Let's just wait maybe another minute or two just to see if there's anybody else who's waiting in the wings, getting ready to log in. So, we will get started in just a few minutes. Incidentally, if you have any questions for me, or if you have a topic that you would like for me to cover, you can just go into the comment section here over to the right of your screen and just drop a comment. I'm going to take a quick run through and see who we've got here today. Looks like we've got some people from California, some people from Australia. Who else do we have? Let's see. Minnesota, Ottawa, very cool. France, wow. Argentina, Texas, uh, Father Walter, good to see you again. Let's see. My dad's here. Good to see my dad too. Let's see. Who else do we have? Arizona, Maryland, the UK, Pennsylvania, Washington State, Steubenville, Ohio, Louisiana, British Columbia, rainy Carolina. You know, it's raining here too. It's actually quite soggy outside, and I'm really upset. You know, I planted tomatoes at the very beginning of the spring, thinking I'm going to have a great big tomato crop. I'm going to have this really nice crop of spicy peppers. I had ghost peppers. I had yellow cayenne. I had jalapenos. I had red chilies. I was all set. I was ready to just have my little garden out there, and I was going to do nothing but make salsa all summer long, which I love doing. And it rained so much that my tomato crop was destroyed. I mean, it was absolutely ruined. There was this black fungus or something that started growing because of all the moisture, and it rotted out the entire tomato crop. Which I wound up making some salsa because my pepper plants loved it apparently. But I made some really good salsa, but I had to do it with store bought tomatoes, unfortunately. So yeah, it's raining here too. Louisville, Kentucky, Atlanta, Indiana, St. Louis, Missouri, Woodbridge, Illinois. We've got a Woodbridge, Virginia, just up the road from us. Let's see, St. Louis, Calgary, Austin, Texas. Ah, good. Somebody from Virginia. Kansas City. Everything's echoing. Do you mean I'm echoing? Am I echoing to anybody else? Do I sound echoey to anybody else? Let me know. Sydney, Australia. Where else are we from? Boston, Georgia, California, San Diego. Awesome. Michigan, Bedford, Massachusetts. Oh, Father Allen, good to see you again. Let's see. Germany. Northern Virginia. Can you please share your goal in doing this? That is to say, if you had your ideal outcome, what would it be? That's a good question. I will copy that and I'll put it in my notes here. Raleigh, North Carolina, Silver Spring, Maryland, Roseville, Illinois, Franklin, Massachusetts, Hickory, North Carolina. All right. Doesn't seem to be any other echo. So maybe if you've got your, if you have a speaker on your computer and it's picking up my voice and it's playing that and then playing it back through your microphone, make sure your mic is turned off. You might have a feedback loop going on. So that might be the issue. And I could keep running down the list of all the Albuquerque, New Mexico, and California and Ohio. I am so glad that all of you are here. Why don't we go ahead and begin with a prayer? I think we're ready to go. We've gone through the introduction phase here. Let's see. Have any of you read the writings? No, I can't say that I have. Sorry. Let's go ahead and begin with a prayer. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostri. Amen. Our Lady of Victory, pray for us. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Very good. Glad to get started, and there is a whole lot to go over. So why don't we go ahead and jump right in? The first thing I wanted to do, this is kind of fun. I don't check my mail every week at our post office box because I'm just swamped. I've got all kinds of things going on. But my wife usually picks up the mail for me when she goes out because we live about 20 minutes away from the or actually closer to half an hour away from the mail. So I don't always get to the mailbox. Anyway, she came back and in the mail, she had this. It was a letter from Father James Martin. Now, he, on Twitter and on Facebook last week was encouraging all of his followers to go out there and, make sure that Church Militant and LifeSite News and Lepanto Institute no longer are on Facebook and Twitter because they're a bunch of haters. So go out there and start flagging their stuff so that they get kicked off. That's exactly what he did. And then he starts spamming my mailbox. What a jerk. Anyway, so I started going through. I was just curious, what kind of garbage is this that he's trying to spam my inbox with? And right on the inside, there was this little America Magazine prayer book. And on the inside is a prayer that was composed by Father James Martin. And it's excerpted from his book, Building a Bridge. So you can imagine who the prayer is oriented to. The title of the prayer is A Prayer for When I Feel Rejected. Sometimes when Father Martin decides to go on crusade and try and kick me off of Facebook and Twitter, I feel a little rejected. I took a look at this thing. First of all, let me just say, a fifth grader probably could have written better than this. This is garbage. It's absolute garbage, both from a theological standpoint, but also from just a literary standpoint. It's horrible. It's absolute garbage. But I want to read the very first opening of this prayer to you because I want you to understand how these people think. I want you to get into their heads a little bit. Think about the theological hoops that you have to jump through. Yeah, does it bear an imprimatur? No, it doesn't. It just says it's from his book. Here's how the prayer goes. Loving God, you made me who I am. Let's stop there. You made me who I am. What do you think he means? When he says, you made me who I am. And he's talking, this is set specifically for the LGBT crowd. So what he's talking about are homosexuals who he says are made as they are. In other words, he's saying God made you a homosexual, not a person with a biological reality that is properly ordered towards the opposite biological reality, which is proper ordering. He's saying that your biological reality does not conform to your desired inclinations, and that is who you are. That's what he's saying. He's saying that a homosexual is made as a homosexual. Let's go on. You made me who I am. I praise you and I love you, for I am wonderfully made in your own image. So let's put those two things together. You made me who I am, a sodomite. I am made in your own image. If a sodomite is made in the image of something else, then what he is saying is that God is also a sodomite. He is saying that God is a homosexual. This is not only theologically false, it is theologically heretical. It is dangerous to anybody who reads this. This is not just theological garbage, it is dangerous poison. And he is spreading this filth all over the United States. He's got the ear of all the dissident Catholics. It is profanity. It's worse than profanity. It's sacrilege. It's sacrilege and it's blasphemy. This is garbage. Of course, on the prayer goes on. I mean, it's the rest of it is just horrible. It's cringeworthy. It's cringeworthy because you think about, having to sit in fifth grade class and recite stupid, insipid poems that your fifth grade teacher made you read that were just really dumb. It's worse than that. It is absolutely cringeworthy, and it is dangerous poison. There's a serenity prayer on the back. He actually rewrote St. Francis's serenity prayer, and it is the worst kind of narcissism. I'm just going to read this to you because you have to understand what these people think, how they relate. He says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, which is pretty much everyone, since I'm clearly not you, God, at least not the last time I checked. I mean, who writes this crap? Who writes like this? Who thinks like this? People who are interiorly, mentally, and morally disordered. Those are the kinds of people that actually produce this kind of garbage. This is nonsense. It's just absolute rot. Anyway, I just wanted to jump right in and share the love with you guys because it's it's so cringeworthy that if we didn't laugh at it, if we didn't look at it and recognize it for what it truly was, we would I don't know, we'd go mad with the madness of the world. It's awful. So anyway, that's that. I just thought that I'd share the joke with you. Now, I want to go over what we at the Lepanto Institute were able to do this week. This week, you may or may not have seen, I haven't put it in the newsletter yet. It will be going out in the newsletter. What I did, I published a report on a grantee of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. The organization is called the Coalition on Homelessness. Over the last 10 years, they've received 4 grants totaling $240,000. They are on tap, or at least they were identified as receiving a grant for the 2017-2018 CCHD cycle year, which would be this fiscal year, this current fiscal year. This organization, Coalition on Homelessness, and I don't know how much that last grant is. So whatever their amount was, it's over $240,000 in total. This organization has a publication called Street Sheets. It is a publication that, or it's a kind of like a newspaper, a newsletter. They print it, they distribute it, but the interior of it, they do all the layout and they do all the formatting and everything else. The interior, all the articles and things like that, are submitted by either people affiliated with the coalition or actual homeless people who are the ones who distribute this particular print publication. And what we found in this publication in Street Sheets, they were promoting transgenderism. They were promoting Planned Parenthood. They actually had an article that talked about the wonderful things of Planned Parenthood and how terrible it was that the Trump administration was going to try and defund Planned Parenthood. They promoted prostitution, said that prostitution should be, it's sex work. Sex work is work. So they were lauding prostitution as a real means of somebody for having gainful employment. They promoted drug use. They promoted contraception. It promoted homosexual lifestyles. So all of these things were promoted in their publication, and then that is what was printed and distributed by the Coalition on Homelessness. We also found that the Coalition on Homelessness, on its own Facebook page, it promoted transgenderism. It participated in something called the Transgender March of Resilience, or the Trans March of Resilience. And they had several Twitter posts favoring transgenderism. What else did they do? They, the most egregious thing was that they had a one particular post with this absolutely blasphemous image of Our Lady. It was one of the worst things that I'd ever seen. It was Our Lady depicted as a trans woman, so basically a man in drag. And underneath, there was a composed prayer to Our Lady, who, and they say that she fought for LGBT rights. She started the LGBT movement. It was absolutely blasphemous. Absolutely blasphemous. This organization, they not only put that image up on their Facebook feed, but they said this was a piece of art that they sold at their own art auction in order to raise funds for their organization. So they're using blasphemy and sacrilege as a way of promoting their organization, of funding their organization. And this is a group that got $250,000 from the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. This is absolutely unconscionable. It's really, really awful to consider that this group got any money from the Catholic Church. But, we keep pointing these things out, and we keep going to the CCHD and saying, how can you possibly give an organization like this any money? They never respond. They never give any explanation. They just hope that people forget and go away. And if they are ever cornered, of course, there aren't any journalists that they'll listen to or talk to anymore that'll challenge them on any of this. You won't hear any challenges from EWTN. You won't hear any challenges from the National Catholic Register. You won't hear any challenges from Catholic News Agency. You won't hear any challenges coming from any mainstream Catholic organization. It's not going to come from Relevant Radio. It's not going to come from Ave Maria Radio, at least as far as I know. I can't remember the last time that any of these news outlets actually challenged the USCCB on the grants that it's making. I can't think of a single instance, at least in the last 6 years, where they've actually challenged the USCCB, where they've actually challenged the USCCB for these kinds of grants, for their programs that they're promoting. So anyway, we published this report. We encourage people, and I still encourage people, to call the USCCB and demand answers. If you go to our website, lepantoinstitute.org, you can actually go to the article itself. In fact, I will go ahead and post the article in the, let me pull it up real quick. I'll go ahead and post the article down below so that you guys can go to the article, and here we go. I'll just go ahead and post it right here, so you can see the article for yourself. There it is. Yeah, the UNCCB. Yeah. So you can go to the article. You can take a look at the information ourselves. But at the bottom of the article, we have the contact information for people at the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. I would be very interested. I encourage all of you to call them, to email them, and to say, how can you possibly give an organization Catholic money? Not only that, but challenge them. I mean, really dig down and say, I want to know how this got through your vetting process. Because you keep telling the people, you keep telling Catholics in the public square, excuse me, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold. You keep telling Catholics in the public square that you've cleaned up the problem. You did this review and renewal, which has these strict vetting processes that make sure that money isn't going to organizations that are fighting against the Catholic Church or opposing the Catholic Church on moral issues. Very clearly, that is not true. This organization's been getting money since 2010. It got money in 2016, 2017, and 2018. So really what you need to do is demand that they answer specifically how this organization could possibly have gotten through the cracks with their thorough vetting process. Demand that they answer that question. But if all of you contacted them and all of you called them, we just might be able to force a response. We might be able to force them to actually come out and answer some of the more serious questions. Anyway, let me, trying to get a couple of things going here. Hold on 1 second while I move on to my next talking point here. There we go. Oops, why didn't that come through? Hold on. 1 second here, sorry. There we go. All right, so moving right along, we published that report, and I've had a couple of arguments with people online, people coming out and saying, oh, well, you didn't contact the CCHD, you didn't contact the USCCB, and you didn't give them a chance to respond. Let me explain something. Back in 2009, when I first started reporting on the Campaign for Human Development and some of the stuff that they were doing, the first thing that I want to point out is we were finding that every time we gave the CCHD or the USCCB any information, suddenly all of the evidence that we had collected on a particular organization would disappear from the internet. So these people were just going straight to these organizations. CCHD was going straight to the organization saying, hey, you can't be doing this. Are you doing this? If you're doing this, you better get rid of it before I see it, kind of thing. So I don't feel too compelled to give them information if they're just going to turn around and help the organization scrub their website so that they look clean to the rest of the public. But more to the point, after having met with CCHD, Ralph McLeod, John Carr, some of their grant specialists, after having met with them probably at least half a dozen times over a few years, one day they just decided to cut ties with us. They wouldn't talk to me anymore. Ralph McLeod sent me a one-line email saying, we no longer see the need, we do not see the need to meet at this time. So, you know, what are you going to do? They cut off ties with me. They cut off all communication. You know, the side that wants dialogue for everything decided they no longer wanted dialogue from me. So, you know, they can't really claim victim status here if they're just going to shut me out and say, you know, we don't want to talk to you anymore. Well, fine, don't talk to me then. But I'm going to continue reporting on what you're doing. So, whatever. There are a few other things that we discussed online. I mean, about the whole problem with, or I'm sorry, the defense of this organization, the Coalition on Homelessness. Some people are saying, oh, well, the Coalition on Homelessness's publication, you know, Street Sheets, is written by homeless people and doesn't reflect the views of the Coalition on Homelessness. Well, so, right, they have a disclaimer. The disclaimer says, these articles do not necessarily represent the views of the coalition. Let's be clear about something. Number one, the CCHD grant guidelines are very, very specific. Let me read to you what the guideline says. It says, applicant organizations, meaning organizations that are applying to get a grant from the CCHD, must not participate in or promote activities that contradict the moral and social teachings of the Catholic Church. There it is. You must not participate in. So you can't be a part of a transgender march. You can't publish articles produced by somebody else that carry a message that fights against the Catholic Church. You do those things, you're out. You're not getting a grant. So they're in violation of CCHD grant guidelines itself. But aside from that, let's just go to Catholic moral teaching. Catholic moral teaching says that there are 9 ways to participate in the sin of another person. This organization, the Coalition on Homelessness, is guilty of at least 3 of those ways. Way number 3 that you can be guilty of somebody else's sin is by consent. So if you say, somebody says, hey, I'm going to go rob that bank, and you slap them on the back and say, you know what, that's a great idea, you should do that. You're giving them your consent to commit evil. So by doing that, you are now complicit in their crime. So you then become guilty of their sin. What the Coalition on Homelessness did, by publishing articles and saying anything laudatory, applauding homosexuality, applauding transgenderism, all of those things fall under complicity by consent. Way number 5, you can be guilty of participating in somebody else's sin by praise or flattery. It's very similar to number 3, by consent, but it's not the same. So Father James Martin, for instance, when he says, you homosexuals should be proud of who you are. You should be proud about the relationships you've developed. Well, now you're complicit in their crime because you are praising them for their sinfulness, and you're flattering them for by telling them that they should identify with their sinful nature. So way number 5, they're guilty because Coalition on Homelessness endorsed sex work. They said, hey, sex work is work. You should leave us alone. We shouldn't be criminalizing this. This isn't something that the police need to be involved in. This is just an exchange of currency between 2 consenting partners, right? Well, that's the way they look at it. And the Coalition on Homelessness is guilty by way of number 7, which is the way of partaking. This also means by participation. So if you say you're partaking in somebody's sin, you're a partner in it. You're a partner in crime. So when the Coalition on Homelessness actually publishes articles that were written by people, these articles are promoting ideas, promoting organizations, promoting actions that are inimical to Catholic teaching, then by publishing that and also distributing it, they're participating in the actual sin of the article itself. So they're guilty 3 ways in the sin of these organizations through their publications, not to mention the fact that their own direct activities have also condemned them. So, all these people, when I say all these people, I mean, there aren't that many that have actually objected, but there are a few that raised strong objections to my article, not the few of which were a couple of priests, unfortunately, thinking that I was being mean and uncharitable because I was attacking an organization that was trying to help the homeless. It's pretty clear that even these priests don't have a solid, clear understanding of Catholic moral teaching, and it's unfortunate. Quite honestly, I think it's very similar to what was going on right around the time of the Protestant Revolt. You had a whole lot of uneducated or undereducated clergy that started to fall into the ways of the world. And when that happened, you had rampant immorality that led to Protestantism. It's kind of the natural consequence. And we're going through the same thing. 500th anniversary, right? Happy anniversary. Let's see. What do we have next on the docket? Before I forget, and actually, before I move on, one thing that I do want to say, excuse me, I'm sorry. Like I said, I've got this dry tickle in my throat. I want to welcome those of you who are not currently members of the Inner Circle. Let me briefly explain. So this is the Inner Circle. All of this right here, this video, is all the Inner Circle. So let me explain to you what it takes to join if you would be interested in actually joining us every Friday to participate in these conversations, to participate in this kind of interaction and dialogue. The Lepanto Institute Inner Circle is a private and closed community of Catholics that come together each Friday to discuss the most pressing issues happening inside the Catholic Church, which is what we've been doing for the last half hour. Each Friday, members come together to receive behind-the-scenes updates on the projects that we are doing at the Lepanto Institute, and I'm going to go into some of that here in just a few minutes. You also get direct access from me to me on the most pressing issues facing the church, so we can continue to talk about the things that are going on in the church in a more direct manner. I can see your comments there on the corner sidebar, and we can actually discuss those things while we have these meetings. You join a community of like-minded Catholics, which are all the other people in the forum, who exchange ideas and news in a private forum. So, if you enjoy this, if you like this format and you like to have these kinds of conversations about the church and also with like-minded faithful Catholics, then this is for you. The Inner Circle is for you, and I invite you to join the Inner Circle today. You can do so by opening the email that you will receive during our conversation. So I'll be sending out an email here very shortly. Just simply open the email, click on the link, and follow the instructions, and it's that simple. So if you would like to continue on with these conversations and be a part of the Inner Circle and join me each Friday, time changes depending upon where I am and what part of the world at the time, but sometimes it's a canned conversation because I can't do it at the time. But anyway, we can work around scheduling, and also if there's a better time for you guys, let me know, because 4 o'clock, it's convenient for me sometimes, not all the time, but if there's a better time that would work for you that you would like to schedule for, let me know. Send me an email or drop me a note here in the sidebar. And if there's a general consensus, or if there's a time that seems to work for a majority of people, then I will go ahead and consider changing to that time slot. So just let me know what works for you. Anyway, again, if you like these conversations, please join us. Please go to your email. As soon as that email comes in, go ahead and click the link, follow the instructions, and welcome to the Inner Circle. Back to the conversation here. The next thing I want to talk about is the fact that this coming November, in just 3 weeks, I believe. What's today? The 26th? So yeah, 3 weeks from now, I will be speaking in Baltimore at the Stop the Silence rally, which is taking place during the USCCB's Fall Assembly in Baltimore, Maryland. The USCCB meeting is going to be held in the Marriott Waterfront Hotel. Right next to that, at the MECU Pavilion, is where we will be holding our rally. This is going to be taking place on November the 13th from 1:30 until 5 p.m. We will have speakers. We will have live streamed content regarding what's going on inside the USCCB's meeting. We'll be talking about how they talk about their handling of the sex abuse crisis, what they intend to do about it, and what we think. We'll have a panel discussion. We'll be addressing things as they happen, but even more, we'll be having rosary, adoration, mass, not at the pavilion. Mass will actually be at a local church. And we will be praying specifically for those bishops as they address this dire crisis in the church that many of their brother bishops have created. We want to make sure that those bishops who have been a part of the problem are recognized by their brother bishops as a part of the problem, but we also want to pray for them. We want to make sure that God's grace is available to our shepherds so that we can be the beneficiaries of that grace. It's a conduit. Yes, we get graces from God himself. We get graces through the sacraments, but we have to remember those graces flow through the proper channels, and the bishops are the first source of those graces. We have to make sure that we are turning to our bishops and offering them our sacrifices and our prayers so that they in turn will have the grace necessary in order to feed us with the salvific graces that we need. So that's what this rally is going to be about. It's about raising awareness. It's about making sure the bishops understand. Yes, we Catholics are furious about what many of them have been guilty of. And we want them to see that we support those good ones who are looking to actually change the problem, fix the problem, and to see that those who have caused the problems, that, well, they're either marginalized, not allowed to actually make any decisions in national programs anymore, and that they're kept away from the faithful in a particular way, like Cardinal McCarrick, for instance. So that's going on. Remember, November the 13th and 14th. On November the 13th, from 1:30 until 5 p.m. at the MECU Pavilion. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the address here. Actually, I'll just go ahead and copy the information here, and I'll put it in the comments box so that you can see. The Silence Stops Now rally. There you go. So there's the information. The Silence Stops Now rally, 1:30 to 5 p.m. MECU Pavilion. The address is 731 Eastern Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202. So I hope that you guys can make it to that. Let's move on to two other things. One thing I want to talk about is this dossier. Church Militant reported just a couple of days ago that the dossier that Pope Benedict had handed to him shortly before he announced his resignation, this 300-page dossier that outlined a cadre of homosexual prelates in the Vatican, has apparently been confiscated by the government of Rome. So it's in federal authorities' hands, not just in Vatican hands anymore. What Church Militant is reporting is that, this dossier has been making the rounds. It's circulating around various circles. Several people have now seen it. Some have seen parts of it. Some have seen summaries of it. Nobody seems to have gotten their hands on the whole thing. So there's a lot of speculation and rumor about what it actually contains. But when you start putting the pieces together, what you get is an image of a cadre of not only homosexual prelates in the Vatican, but occult or even satanic prelates. If you remember last year, Cardinal Coco Palmario, there was an incident, shall we say, where there was a gay orgy that took place in one of the papal apartments in the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. In that party, apparently Cardinal Coco Palmario was pulled aside before any arrests were made. And when that happened, the report is, or the indication is, that Cardinal Coco Palmario was kind of presiding over this thing. There was a homosexual orgy. There were, drugs throughout the whole thing. People were doing cocaine, I think was the drug there. And so Coco Palmario got a warning. He was set aside and other people were arrested. Here's the thing. Nobody presides at an orgy unless there's an occult ritual taking place. And that's really the beginning and end of it. You don't have a presider without a ritual or a rite or a procedure to preside over. So when we look at this dossier, and apparently the dossier was there inside the apartment, it was confiscated by the authorities. this dossier indicated that these homosexuals were also involved in the occult. So it shouldn't be any surprise, but it seems somewhat ironic that it would be confiscated under circumstances that it revealed inside the pages of the report. So you look at the situation and you think, gosh, this is not only horrifying, but it's somewhat familiar. And if you've ever read the book Windswept House, if you remember, Windswept House began with, or it opened with this satanic rape of a young girl, and it was supposed to be, what's this? It is revealed that the dossier is the real text of Windswept House with real names inserted. Well, probably, probably. Here's the thing: the book started off with this rape of a girl. It was connected with a satanic ritual that was coordinated across phone lines, I think. From Charleston, South Carolina, I believe, and Rome. Anyway, this was alleged to have taken place, I think, in 1969, maybe. What's interesting about that is that there is actually a woman who filed a police report, and in the police report, she named Cardinal Joseph Bernardin as her assailant in this satanic ritual. Now, what else is interesting? I mean, that's anecdotal. That's, he's dead, so whatever at this point. But it's been so long since I read the book, I thought I'd take a look at what Wikipedia said about the book. I just want to read to you what the summary is for this book, and this is quite shocking. Here's what Wikipedia says. It tells the story of an international organized attempt by these Vatican insiders and secular internationalists to force a pope of the Catholic Church to abdicate so that a successor may be chosen that will fundamentally change Orthodox faith and establish a new world order. I don't know if it's been that long since I read the book. I don't remember that being the plot. Maybe it was. But I thought that was interesting. I don't know if somebody's being snarky on Wikipedia, but if that's the actual content of the book, that's what the book is about, that's quite shocking. And it would be especially shocking if Malachi Martin kind of saw this coming back in the 90s. I remember my grandparents getting the book and reading it. My grandfather I was in college at the time. My grandfather told me not to read it. He still thought of me as younger than I was. And they were talking about it, and my grandmother said that Malachi Martin said that he changed the names in the book from real names to fictional names because he liked his kneecaps. If this is the case, if the book really is kind of about this homosexual satanic cabal in the Vatican, and that they were trying to undermine the authority of the Pope, something that seems to be playing out now, I can see why. I can see why he would worry about his kneecaps. So, with that, let's move along to one last thing that I'll talk to you about. The Youth Synod drops LGBT language. This is something that Church Militant is reporting now. Let me go to the article real quick. The headline is Report Youth Synod Drops Pro-Gay Language. And according to Sandro Magister, who is a Vatican expert, he reported that discussions among Synod fathers did not include changing church teaching on homosexuality, even among the most aggressively pro-gay cardinals. The development is surprising some, given that the Synod's Instrumentum Laboris, the Synod's starter document, seemed to indicate a different direction could be expected, as it included the politically charged term LGBT. The document stated, quote, some LGBT youths, through various contributions that were received by the General Secretariat of the Synod, wish to benefit from greater closeness and experience greater care by the church, while some BC ask themselves what to suggest to young people who decide to create homosexual instead of heterosexual couples, and above all, would like to be close to the church. Instead, Magister wrote, when it came time to discuss the paragraph in the third week of the synod, not even those synod fathers, known as innovators, came out into the open. And then the article goes on and says that essentially they're reaffirming church teaching. They're talking about how, well, let's see, who said this one? Cardinal Blaise Cupich said, concerning youth who experience same-sex attraction, the group Angelicus B declared, we propose a separate section for this issue, and that the main objective of this be the pastoral accompaniment of these people, which follows the lines of the relevant section of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Now, keep in mind, this is something that we should be take it as a victory. I mean, take any victory we can get at this point. Take it as a victory that they felt compelled to not include this kind of language in the final document, that they felt compelled to change evil LGBT language in their document. But be very cautious. Be very cautious, because what we have seen is a move to soften the language in the Catechism. We have seen a move to use pastoral approaches as a way of using pastoral approaches as a way of softening the way. It also leaves it open for the future. Yes, Patty, yeah, absolutely. It opens the way for other issues in the future. Here's the thing. Anytime they have a defeat in the public, they're going to go underground and they're going to try and subvert it in the darkness. They're not going to be satisfied with walking away and not having their agenda fully embraced in the light. So if they can't get their agenda fully embraced in the light, they're going to go into the darkness and they're going to start monkeying with things behind the scenes, and they're just going to be very soft on church teaching and on authoritative issues and that kind of thing. So, for the moment, it's a victory, but be very watchful. Be very watchful, because when these guys don't get what they want, they're going to find another avenue, and they're going to find a way to start injecting their agenda. As long as they're in power, as long as they have authority, they are a danger, and we need to continue to work to expose them. So that's what we do. In the meantime, let's go to questions. I'll go ahead and start with the one that I set aside from earlier. And if you have any questions, just please put them in the comments box, and I'll check it here, and we'll see what kind of conversation we can have with those. So the question is, can you please share your goal in doing all of this? So what is my goal in having these sessions? That is to say, if you had your ideal outcome, what would it be? This format allows us the opportunity to actually discuss the things that are going on. Now, I do prepare notes and I do prepare a presentation because I want to keep people as informed and up to date as possible. This is a very quick and easy way for me to do that without having to sit down and write an article or I don't know. It's easier for me just to communicate to you directly. But also, this is a very fast way to get immediate feedback. It's also a very quick way to say, you know what, here's something that we all need to do in a concerted way so that we can obtain objective A, objective B, that kind of thing. A lot of what I do is research and reporting. Some of what I do is orchestrating a response. So like earlier in this session, we talked about the CCHD and we talked about the particular grantee. I put the link earlier in the com box. And I encouraged all of you to call and to email the people on the list at the CCHD and get them to tell you specifically why this group got a grant, and how it got through their thorough vetting process. Um, the information was so easy to obtain, and it was so egregious that the only way anybody really could have gotten through is if the person that was supposed to be vetting them didn't, or if the person who was supposed to be vetting them said, you know what, I kind of like what they're doing and I'm not going to report on that. That's the only way. That's the only way an organization like this is going to get money. So, as I said at the beginning, I encouraged all of you to call and to email and to demand a response. And by the way, let me know what kind of response you get. I'd be very interested to know how they're responding to people. And then that's what we can do from here. That's what this format allows us to do. So that's my objective here, is to keep you informed, to let you know what's going on. And if there's a question, if there's something that I can clarify, I can do it in a very immediate way right here, right now. And we can also orchestrate and maybe collaborate. And if there is a project that we should discuss, if you have an idea for a project, or if you have an idea for some sort of outreach, we can discuss that here. Shoot me an email, MD Hitchborn at lepantoinstitute.org. I'm going to go ahead and put that here. So there's my email address. Shoot me an email. If there's something that we can collaborate on as a group, that we can coordinate and put pressure on a particular organization, or if, like if I do a report on Catholic Relief Services, for instance, I can go over that information. I can explain it to you step by step by step. Because sometimes, I mean, let's face it, a 57-page report on CRS is very weighty, and it's not something anybody wants to sit through. It's much easier for the Cliffs Notes. So think of this as the Cliffs Notes. This is my way of being able to explain to you what's going on in a very truncated manner. And it's the face-to-face is very easy. So my response face-to-face was, thank you very much, but no thanks. Okay. I don't know what that means. Anyway, that's the long and short of it. So let me see if there are any other questions here. Based on Pope Francis's last modus operandi, we can rest assured that he will insert LGBTQ into the Youth Synod's final document. He very well may. Like I said, be watchful. Keep an eye on it. Don't let this just kind of sink to the wayside. Sometimes what'll even happen, they'll put out a document and it'll look like the final, and they'll say, okay, this is the final document. Everybody will say, oh, everybody was so upset and there wasn't anything really to pay attention to, and they'll just blow it off. And all of a sudden, all the anger is out of the room. All the steam is let go. And then, as you pointed out, Pope Francis or somebody else will insert a line, a phrase, change the sentence structure of something, which changes its meaning. And all of a sudden you have something that's bad that necessarily wasn't before. As that happens, well, that's when you run into a problem. Let's see. How do you specifically to someone here? I don't know what you mean there. Is God allowing what is happening in the church as a chastisement? Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to remember that God has a permissive will and he has an active will. In his active will, he is in control of the Catholic Church. It would be the extreme end of folly to believe that a bunch of evil-minded individuals could somehow wrestle control of the church away from God. They didn't take control of the church away from God. So we have to believe that God allowed them control. It's a lot like what our Lord said to Pilate. What authority you have, you gain from my Father above. So that these evil men have control of the Vatican, have control of the church's structures, uh, they have that authority and they have that power because God allowed them to. So yes, it is a chastisement. It's this all started back in the 1700s. After the Protestant revolt, you had a bunch of false philosophies entering into the church. Immorality started to become a problem. There were a series of reforms over the 1800s, but they were never long lasting, especially as false ideologies continued to enter the minds of the church, and then revolutionary ideas, and then a false theology started to enter into their minds. And as these false ideas developed and grew, they've taken root and they have produced this false fruit, this wicked fruit of modernism that is now in control. So yeah, we're being chastised, but it's a cascading effect. It's not just because of our own individual sins. I mean, that plays a part in it, but it's also because the church has been under assault for the last 150 to 200 years, in a very direct manner. I mean, the church has always been under attack since her inception. She's always been under attack, but it's been a very focused and a very concerted attack within the last 150 to 200 years. And that attack has been specifically to whittle away the church's moral teaching. Okay, you think about what happens if you change if you change the philosophy. Well, first of all, if you change the authority, which is what the Protestant revolt was, change the authority, and that leads to a change in philosophy. Change the philosophy, that leads to a change in theology. Change the theology, and then you wind up changing practice. And all of that cascading effect comes to what we are facing now. It's modernism. It's all absolute modernism. We are being chastised for modernism. We have to fight against it. It's something that we have to fight against in our families. It's something we have to fight against in our churches, and it's something we have to fight against in our culture. It's just the way it is. Victory is going to be had, not necessarily. I mean, it will ultimately be had in society and in the church herself, because God will not be mocked. But individual victory is not won through civil victory. It's not won through cultural victory, because you can still fight the good fight in the church and lose your soul through one mortal sin. So you have to, our victory is in that struggle with ourselves, with our own concupiscence, with our own demons that are trying to grab us and throw us into hell. So yeah, are we being chastised? Absolutely. Is this a fight that we have to fight? You bet. But don't lose sight of the fact that your soul comes first. Okay, that's the most important thing. Does anyone know the reason for the removal of office of Bishop Hawley? I'm gonna withhold judgment on that. He's saying that all of this was trumped up out of jealousy. I'm not entirely sure what jealousy there would be. He is a Wuerl and McCarrick protege. He came out of Washington, D.C. Bishop Wilton Gregory, which is also a very liberal bent, very pro-homosexual. He and Hebda were the ones that investigated, and they said that there was some sort of financial impropriety. So it's going to be a little while before the dust settles on that one, that we're actually going to know what happened for sure. My guess, if I were to wager a guess, is that this is probably a matter of a sacrificial lamb. Give the church the impression that we're being they're being thorough in their approach to handling clericalism and the problems in the church, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to start cracking down, and these bishops better get in line. It's easy to throw a sacrificial lamb onto the altar and then assuage all the guilt and make everybody think that everything's okay. I, for one, am not convinced. So be watchful. I don't know for sure why he was removed. We may never know, but I think that it's something that we could find out if we continue to dig, and we'll see what we find. Let me see. May a self-identifying homosexual be approved to teach children or even adults in parish religious and or scriptural study? When you say may, do you mean is it possible or is it permissible? Is it possible? Yeah. I mean, it's happening all over the world. Self-identifying homosexuals are finding their ways in all sorts of avenues for teaching kids in Catholic structures. Is it permissible? Absolutely not. You can't have somebody who is self-identifying with a grave sin, one of the ones that cries to heaven for vengeance, have any authority in the church. So, is it permissible? No. Is it possible? Obviously, because it is happening. Please remind all to vote pro-life this midterm. Yes, please vote pro-life this midterm. Be sure to get out November the 6th. Vote pro-life, vote pro-family. Encourage your family and friends to do so. If we can't even promote our own civil victories, well, pray also. We've seen a lot of good things happen through the 54-day novena, and through anything else. So pray, push, talk, expose, keep it up. CRS, what info do you have and where can I get it? We have a lot of information on Catholic Relief Services on our website at lepantoinstitute.org. If you go to our charities list, there is a link at the top that says Charities Report. Go there, and in that Charities Report, you'll see a link for Catholic Relief Services. Click that link, and you'll see all kinds of articles and reports that we've put together on them. It's a veritable archive. It's a lot of information, but it's all there. Have you heard anything about priests swearing an oath to Francis and remaining for him and not for God's word and truth? There have been rumors about a loyalty oath, but I've not seen one actually in practice. I do know that the gang of eight cardinals all swore a loyalty oath to Pope Francis when he was first getting a lot of heavy criticism, but I haven't seen anything to indicate that that he's mandating this for priests. Let's see. Thank you for the ideas. Any other questions? Michael, do you advocate for withholding all tithing? No. Let me be very clear. We all have an obligation to tithe. You may not tithe. You have to tithe. But we can be smart about the way we do it. Tithing means giving 10% of your overall income. There's a debate, and it's a valid one, as to whether this means your total income or your gross income, meaning after taxes and everything else. Which do you give from? I don't want to get into that because there's just a whole, it's not resolved. There is theological reasons to believe that tithing means your total income. There are theological reasons to believe that we're talking gross income after taxes. Whatever the case may be, we are all obliged to tithe. But this doesn't mean that you give carte blanche. You don't have to write a blank check to your parish or to the bishop and say, well, here you go. Here's $100 for this month, or here's $50 for this month, or whatever it is. And then just let him spend it on whatever. You can specify in the memo area of your check exactly what that money goes to. You can say, when you give your tithe, this check is for the electric bill for the parish. And that money can't go to anything but the electric bill. You can say this check is for building maintenance, or this check is for the priest's stipend, or this check is for the mortgage payment. Whatever it is, you can maintain your tithing contribution to the church by specifying where it goes. That's how you can be smart with your tithe. Yes, we are required to tithe, but no, you are not required to give money to these evil programs. You don't have to give to the Campaign for Human Development. You don't have to give to Catholic Relief Services. Those are not required tithing programs. So yes, you have to tithe, but you can withhold your funds from those programs, and you can actually starve out some of those programs by specifying where your money is going to go. Be very clear about that in the memo section, and you can move forward from there. Let's see. Anything else? Why does Catholicism want to touch the lie of theistic evolution? You know, I've been wondering that for a long time myself. It doesn't make any sense. Uh, I get frustrated because the church people in the church, they want to get into these speculative things. They what I mean by speculative, let me be clear. I'm talking about theologians and people in high places in the church that want to talk about evolution, or the speculation of evolution, or the speculation of the size of the universe, that kind of thing. I don't know why that would be a particular Catholic thing to go into. Evolution doesn't make any sense anyway. Scientifically, it's not it's not feasible. Theologically, it's stupid. Uh, but more to the point, I'll never forget. This was a couple of years ago. There was an article that came out of the Vatican where I think it was the Vatican Observatory. Somebody from the Vatican Observatory said, and it was a priest, said that they were talking about the possibility of alien life. And they said, "Oh well, if aliens came to the Earth, well, we would baptize them." You can't baptize an alien. You can't baptize, even if it's an. Look, I don't believe in aliens. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's absolutely absurd that there is any intelligent life anywhere else in the universe except for here. Um, the unknown intelligences that we've heard about from scripture and through revelation are angels and demons. So if we want to talk about aliens, there they are. There is no intellectual alien life. There are no ETs. But this idea of baptizing aliens is about as intelligible as baptizing a dog, because they're not children of Adam. Baptism exists to wipe away the sin of Adam. An alien life, if such a thing were to ever exist, is some entity that is not a part of the line of Adam, does not possess original sin, and can't be baptized. It's stupid. These people don't even think. But if they're going to talk about theistic evolution and that kind of thing, of course they're going to talk about baptizing aliens. They're not present. It's empty. Nobody's home. Okay, theologically, they are not there. They're not thinking in terms of theological realities. They're simply thinking in terms of, oh well, what are the science and various speculative theories about the cosmos. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely absurd. All scientific knowledge starts with theology. It starts with metaphysical realities, and then knowledge comes from there. It doesn't start with, this snail seems to have crawled out of the stream here, so maybe the snail actually was some creature that lived in the water. And it's absurd. It is absolutely absurd. So you know what? That whole thing is just absolute bunk. I don't give it any credence. I don't understand why people give it the time of day. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. Is Aaron Bianco trying to sue you for losing his job with the San Diego Diocese? Here's the thing. In his statement to National Catholic Reporter, Aaron Bianco said that he is obtaining the assistance. He's obtaining legal counsel in order to pursue a defamation suit. He didn't specify who, but we are trying to make sure that we've got our ducks in a row before he actually gets a chance to do anything. When you start talking legal matters, now, of course, discovery is going to be a problem for him. But even more to the point, if he's going to file a lawsuit, we will file a countersuit, and we will make sure that he's not able to sue anybody else. He was in the wrong. He accused us of fomenting violence against him, which is absolutely absurd. Our report came out after all the string of violence that he's been attributing to us and LifeSite News and Church Militant. The string of violence that he alleges and the harassment and everything else. LifeSite News had what, 2 articles that they had written on Aaron Bianco in the last 2 years. Church Militant only had a handful as well. So for him to go around and say that we were the ones that fomented hatred against him, discovery is going to be a huge problem for him. Building a case is going to be an even bigger problem, and a countersuit against him is going to be an even bigger problem. So, no, he's not filed a lawsuit, but he's making ruminations of trying to file one. He's not going to get anywhere with it. It's going to backfire in a very major way if he tries it, but we'll see what happens. I don't know what he's going to do. He may have a lawyer that says, you know what, you're really stupid for trying this. I'm not going to represent you. And that lawyer would be right to do so, unless he just wants to take his money. We'll see. We'll see. Let's see. No one will even acknowledge the question. Which question? Oh, the evolution one. Okay. Sending a check to the FSSP. I would count that as tithing. Thank you so much. Trying to look through this quickly because I don't want to hold you guys for too much longer. Let's go a little bit further. Any questions? I think that probably answers it. I don't know that I'm seeing any other questions. If I miss something, I'm sorry. Send me an email and we'll try and get to it next time. You know, one thing I do want to tell you before you go, this is kind of funny. I did my report last week on, yes, we will end with a St. Michael prayer, and this actually ties into why. Last week, I did my report on, or last week, no, earlier this week, I did my report on the CCHD. And in that report, what I pointed out was that there was this homosexual problem and After I published, I went to Facebook and I started posting my article all over Facebook the way that I always do. And I had just finished posting the article, just finished sending it around as much as I can. And all of a sudden, my laptop stopped connecting to the internet. Just done. I could get it connected for maybe a minute at a time, and then it would cut out again. Just kept cutting off. And it wasn't happening to any other device in our house, not our cell phones, not our iPads, not the other computer that my wife uses. Nothing worked. My laptop was completely cut off from the internet. I tried plugging it directly in. I tried rebooting the computer. I tried clearing out the caches. I did everything I knew to do to fix the problem. Nothing worked. So I went to spiritual direction. This was on Wednesday. And after I went to spiritual direction, I brought my laptop with me, and I told our priest, I said, look, I brought my laptop because I want you to bless it, because all of a sudden, all of this stuff went wonky on the laptop. And so he went ahead and, extraterrestrials are messing with my bandwidth. He blessed my laptop, all in Latin, holy water, the whole bit. And I came home and I plugged it in, and guess what? Works just fine. Hadn't had a problem since. So the devil most definitely is messing around with trying to stop us, with trying to truncate our message. And I'll tell you, one of the best ways to know that you're on the right path is if the devil starts messing with you. Something else that happened today, I got up and I was getting ready to do some work. I was getting ready to write another article. And guess what? Could not log into the back end of our website. I'm locked out. So I've got the server company looking into the problem. I can't seem to get into the back end of our website, which means I can't update it with a new article yet. So it'll be a day or two before that gets resolved. But it's just one of those things. Just keeps happening. The devil's going to mess with us. He's going to mess with us. He's going to try and put in stumbling blocks. But he's a twerp. Okay, the devil is just this little tool that he's like a gremlin. He starts tripping you up and he starts messing with you. Heck, one day when I was working on a particular item, I said the rosary with my family, and as soon as I started the rosary, my heart started to race, and I was filled with rage. It was an unnatural rage, and I could not get it out of my head. My heart was racing. I was furious. I was fuming. I didn't really have a reason to be mad, except there was a particular instance that was irritating to me, but not to the point of making me rageful. But I kept it contained. We continued on with our rosary, and as soon as I finished the rosary, it was gone. I wasn't mad anymore. But I told my spiritual director on Wednesday about this incident, and he said, "No, that the devil knows where your weak spots are, and he's going to sit there and he's going to poke them. He's going to poke them every single time just to try and trip you up, just to try and get you to fall into sin. So whether it's something mechanical like like your laptop, or something digital like your website, or something personal like your emotions, the devil's going to poke you and he's going to find whatever means he can in order to get to you. Our role is to remember to call upon our Lord, to call upon Our Lady for help, and to say, I can't do this without you. I need you to sustain me so that I can steer away from sin. Call upon Our Lady's mantle. I mean, talk about a powerful, powerful instrument of salvation. Ask Our Lady to shield you in her mantle. Hide me in your mantle so that the devil can't see me, so the devil can't get me. We think about kids running to the bedroom and pulling the covers up over their heads. Well, in a way, we kind of do the same thing spiritually. We want Our Lady to pull the mantle over us so that we're protected, and she will. And that mantle is incredible protection. I mean, you think about what happened with Our Lady of Lourdes, where Saint Bernadette Soubirous, she was standing there while Saint Bernadette was praying the Rosary, and all of a sudden the Gave River started to well up, started to overflow, and she could hear these horrible animals running around and growling and threatening and saying, "Get out, get out." And as that was happening, Our Lady just glanced. They were gone. The demons were out of there. The Gave River stopped overflowing, and everything was quiet. It took a glance from Our Lady, just a glance. If we ask her to cloak us in her mantle, we will be absolutely protected. We have to remember to ask. And that's the hard thing. But remember to ask. Get into the practice. This is why we talk about practicing our faith or practicing virtue. It takes practice. It takes repetition. It takes reminders. We have to remind ourselves. So do it. Get into it. Ask Our Lady for help. Ask Our Lady to get you to hide under her mantle, and she will protect you in ways that you would never imagine, in ways that you didn't even know you needed protecting. Wear your brown scapular, okay? Always wear your brown scapular. It is your armor. It is the source of protection. Our Lady will not let the devil penetrate that. Wear it. Be faithful to the promises of Our Lady. Pray your rosary every single day, okay? Ask Our Lady to guard you, to protect you, to guide you, to help you, and I can't think of a surer way to salvation. That's where victory is. And so with that, why don't we go ahead and say a prayer to St. Michael the Archangel and close with a Hail Mary. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl through the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostri. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Our Lady of Victory, pray for us. Now, one last thing. I just want to remind you, thank you all for coming. If you enjoy these kinds of conversations, if you would really like to participate in what we do every Friday, then please go to your email, click the link in the email from the invitation, and become a part of the inner circle. Please join us and please help us to keep things going. And with that, take care. God bless you. And I hope to see you next week.